Ready, set, go. Hello. Hello. Okay, everybody. Hi, this is John Hennessey, and today we're going to shoot a little video and talk about my Tesla Plaid. Oh my gosh. John Hennessey's crossed over to the dark side. He's driving an electric car. Well, why would John do that? He's totally a internal combustion guy and been building, the Exorcist and the Venom 1000 twin turbo Vipers, the Venom GT, the Venom F5, the Mammoth, the Velociraptor, all these crazy, internal combustion. Well, here's why. Oh crap. The G's, baby. The G's with no noise. So here we are in the back of our racetrack here at Hennessey Performance. Man, that's 153 like nothing. Now will it stop? Oh boy. Yikes. There's lots of good and there's a little bit of not so good. And that's the first not so good. The brakes. If you plan on going really fast and really using the full potential of this car, you better be careful because it might stop once, but it won't do it back to back. I'm not talking smack about Elon or the Tesla people. Really have a sincere appreciation for their car and what they've done, and we'll get into those details here in just a moment. I love driving this car and it's a lot of fun. I have a Porsche 911 Turbo S that's not as fast as this car in a straight line, but it will stop and it'll turn. You might want to, just be careful. All right, so that's really the only real negative to the car, and that's basically just a derivative of physics. You've got 4,700 plus pounds, primarily from the batteries, that make this a heavy car. Let me just be really clear, and I'm gonna yak and talk about my Tesla because it's my car, and I'm just gonna give my impression. But I will forewarn all of the any Tesla geeks. You guys probably know way more about this car than I do, or that I ever will. So if you're watching this video, please just watch it for John Hennessey's impression of the Tesla Plaid. This is not your go-to video to learn everything about this car. There's a million videos on YouTube and other places. I'm just going to give you my impression, and I'm going to tell you why I bought the car, and we'll just go from there. So here's my electrification story. I started thinking about electrification really when the Tesla Model S came out about 10 years ago. My biggest hang up on electrification, I just can't get past the weight. How can we build a proper sports car, hypercar, with something that weighs, 4,000 or 5,000 pounds? I just basically had to just accept the fact that battery technology was not improving at the rate that I thought that it would in terms of lighter batteries that charge faster, batteries that were less expensive to produce in order to be able to consider building a sports car, hypercar with electrification for its powertrain. And I thought, okay, well, what if the car doesn't have to be a sports car or hypercar, traditional, two-seat? Maybe it's a luxury car with 4 seats. And again, you can watch our videos that we've done on Project Deep Space. It's will be the world's first 6-wheel drive, 6 electric motor vehicle, world's most expensive EV at over $3 million, and world's first hyper luxury car, hyperlux car. I think that's a whole new category, and I think there'll be others that will follow, with Bugatti and Rimac being joined together. Rolls-Royce for sure. So you know they're going to come out with some really cool electrified luxury car. So again, that's the direction that we're going with Project Deep Space. No pun intended, but we're deep into the design, beginning the engineering phase of that project, and we'll get into those details soon with an updated video. We're not going to talk too much about Deep Space today, but I at least wanted to be able to give the background as far as why did John decide to buy a Tesla Plaid? Well, I'm an ADHD, kind of very spontaneous person, but also at the same time, I try to be kind of thoughtful when things are really important in my life or my career. So I'm like, let's slow this down. And so I thought, I've had many opportunities to drive electric cars over the years, but I didn't want to just jump in a buddy's car or a media car and go out for a quick blast. I really wanted to own the car, so I held off even driving an electric car until I bought this car. I bought it and took delivery back it was either right before or right after Christmas, and so I've been driving it the last 2.5 months. And because I wanted like a full immersion, so it's like I didn't want to just take a few lessons and learning how to speak Italian, just drop me off in the middle of Rome or someplace in Italy, and I just kind of have to just figure it out. So that's what I'm doing with this car to understand electrification. I think the thing that I like the most, that I appreciate the most about the car, that's very different, and I don't know that can be replicated in internal combustion, at least from my experience, is the precise control of the throttle pedal of my right foot. So I let off, you've got the Regen basically is braking the car. Again, all the electric people out there that follow Tesla, they all know all this, but for somebody who's just an internal combustion person who's not familiar with these cars, when you're driving the Tesla Plaid, any speed below 85 to 80 miles an hour, as soon as I let off the throttle in the Tesla, the car starts to immediately slow down. It basically uses the regeneration of the motors to put electricity back into the battery. Like I'm going to pull up to the stop sign, I just let off my foot off the pedal and actually stopped about 20 feet short of the stop sign. Anyway, it's something I really enjoy. So if I'm sitting at a stop sign or a stoplight, I don't have to sit there with my foot on the brake pedal. The Tesla's just stopped. Oh man, just that precision of that throttle. Again, this thing's got so much torque. It's got an instant 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, and even at 4,750 pounds, it just instantly goes. But I guess the best way I would describe to a friend, what does the torque of this vehicle feel like? It feels like a big block, Chevy on nitrous. I mean, if you start talking about like a 300 shot of nitrous, it's like violent. Okay, this is not violent. This is very smooth, but it's just that instant torque. It just goes. I think at some point, some manufacturer is probably going to figure out ways of using the regen of the motors to even create better braking performance for a car that has proper, big Brembos that would be able to stop this car. So I think that's something that I kind of look forward to. That's something that we're going to be working on in terms of the braking system for deep space. That car, again, it's going to be a big car. It's probably going to be heavy, but I promise you it will stop. It will stop every bit as well as it can accelerate with 6 motors. It'll have the capacity to produce over 2,000 horsepower. So what else do I like about the Tesla? I like simple things. I like my iPhone. I like things that are very simple and intuitive. I didn't have to watch a bunch of videos or figure out a bunch of stuff or ask people a bunch of questions. And I'm probably only fully utilizing maybe somewhere between 30 and 50% of the features of the car. But that's just the stuff that I've kind of figured out as I've kind of gone along. It's got cameras in the front, on the side, looking in the rear, and like if I'm going down the road, like it sees everything. It sees people, and it shows you on the screen. It tries to tell you like, oh, I know there's a truck there. Oh, I know there's a car there. Oh, I know you just passed a cow on the side of the road, or whatever. And I guess all that's for the autopilot system, which, again, I just, a friend of mine's dad taught me when I was in high school not to depend on cruise control, because that's how you fall asleep at the wheel, especially at night. And so I've never been big on cruise control. I've never been big on all these people talk about different levels of autonomous driving and autopilots. I'm like, I guess maybe that's the control freak in me. I'm really not interested in letting somebody else freaking drive the car, especially a machine or some algorithm. So I've been kind of hesitant on using autopilot. A buddy of mine has a Plaid, and he's like, man, you're going to live in stop and go traffic. So I've started to use it. I guess it's limited to like 90. So I did a road trip a few weeks ago and actually is the first and only time I've used a supercharger, and that all went pretty well. I took like 20 minutes to juice me up to get home. And, for whatever the stated range for the Tesla is, 300 miles. Well, the way John Hennessey drives, my range is good for about 170 miles. I can drive from my house to the office. I can drive from the office all the way into town to the gym that I like to go to, and then I can run a few other errands and make it back home. And I think doing all that's probably 120, 130 miles, and I still probably have 25-30% left on the charge and the battery. So for the way I drive it, I'm happy just like my cell phone. I just generally just plug it in at night and use it the next day. I've not had to have to recharge my battery just for my day-to-day driving. What other just general driving, overall vehicle dynamic impressions do I have? Look, the handling on this car, surprisingly, I think it's pretty good. I think that's the low CG from the battery being down low. But I also feel like the Tesla engineers, hello, big block, I think they've done a nice job in terms of, you have a car here that can run 9s in the quarter mile. So when you give it the squeeze, that's compressing the back end. So like you have a suspension here that's still very compliant, very comfortable. And I think, again, I'm kind of on my we got some windier roads up here. These cars get around on a windy road pretty darn well. Much better than you would think for something that weighs this much. So again, if the car just had a proper set of Brembos on it, it could really do some repeated stops. Like, man, that fixes that. In my opinion, that fixes the biggest issue of the car. But again, when I'm driving my internal combustion stuff, or over the last 10 years, it seems like everywhere I'm going somewhere, I'm going a little bit of maybe doing 5 to 10 over the speed limit, and it just seems like all the Teslas are all being driven by a bunch of old people that are like going 47 miles an hour in the slow lane because they're trying to get an extra. I don't exactly know why they're driving so slow. And I'm like, why would you people drive these cars so slow? They're so much fun to drive. On a scale of 1 to 10, compared to the Venom F5, if the Venom F5 is a 10, the Tesla's a 3, okay? But that's a $2 million car with 1,800 horsepower that weighs 3,000 pounds, okay? And the sound and the overall visceral experience is just like, it's like no other car that I've experienced. How does the Tesla Plaid compare to my Turbo S Porsche? Well, this car was $140-something thousand. My Turbo S was $230. Man, for a daily driver, I can make an argument for either one. I like cars that are just under the radar screen. They don't look fast. Nobody's really noticing them. And so I can go out and just go about my business and move around quickly and hopefully not get noticed. That's just me, okay? So I'm not looking for attention. I'm actually, quite honestly, I'm looking for the opposite. I don't want to be noticed. So I got a Chevy SS with about 700 horsepower, and it looks like a rental car. It just blends in. It just looks like just a Chevy Malibu. And so that again, that's what I like. If I'm going to drive something that's kind of loud and ostentatious and bright, just got to be aware that if you're moving around quickly, you might get a ticket. So, okay, here's another one. So there's a friend of mine who's a retired executive from one of the major OEMs. Brought a friend of mine along to meet him, and my friend says, "Hey, what do you think about the Tesla?" And my friend, who's again retired, former senior executive, major car company, said, "Well, I think it's a $30,000 car rolling around on a $70,000 battery." And I kind of laughed. I'm like, I think that sounds about right. So when I got this car, I opened the door and I opened the rear, and so like if you start digging into the build quality, some of the panel gaps and some of the things are just not like, they've been building the Model S for 10 years now, and I think progressively their quality's gotten better. So again, knock on wood, I don't have any squeaks, I don't have any rattles. What I like about the Plaid is it's just kind of my stealth bomber for going to work and tooling around. It's fun to drive. I haven't had too many people challenge me to a race, but I have had a couple, and it was just like no contest. It's just like, this is even worth my time. I'd like to get a Mustang Mach-E. They're hard to get. Not as fast, but I've got friends that have those. So it's like having a bag of golf clubs. It's a proper, I've said this before, electrified vehicles, like some of our well-off clients, it's like they look at their vehicles kind of like their golf clubs. Like you've got a putter, you got a wedge, you got a big Bertha. And so it depends on what driving you want to do, what your style is. You want to go by yourself, you want to take people, what do you want to do? But I feel like this is a very useful tool in the toolbox, or club in the bag of clubs. We're not talking reality for everybody. We're not talking reality for me when I was like, in my early 20s and could just like barely afford one car. I just don't think internal combustion's going away. That's just me. I live in America. I live in Texas where people have a choice. And if I have to choose to go more than, 40, 50 miles from home base, I'm taking internal combustion. I don't want to fool with having to stop at a supercharger station twice to go to wherever the heck I'm going to. And I think that where the market ends up, again, in America, I mean, there may be other places like Germany or other, countries that say we're going to be all electric by a certain date. But again, I think the consumer ultimately has a voice in that. And we're not even going to get into the whole infrastructure and where can you charge these things. There's a lot of things that are going to need to get sorted out for it to be really like go full mainstream. But again, for people that live in town and you're just kind of driving around, it's fine for around town. Here's another comment that I want to make. If a young person learning how to drive, mom and dad, they've got two Teslas, or they got a Tesla and they got a Mach-E Mustang, and they learn how to drive with a car that has regenerative braking, I promise you, the moment they get in an internal combustion car, if they're not properly coached, they're gonna run into something. They're gonna crash into something. I even find like when I go from this car, the other day, I've been driving this a lot. I was driving my wife's Range Rover, and I kind of like rolled through a stop sign because you lose that calibration of the brake pedal. I know how to stop a car, and again, I kind of have to remind myself, well, you're not an electric car anymore, buddy. You're in an internal combustion, and you better recalibrate your brake foot for the brake pedal and the amount of pressure that it needs to stop the car when you need to stop. So anyway, there's other stuff I could probably go on and on about, but overall, I would give the Tesla Plaid a very high rating. Again, that's for me. For what I like to do, I like to drive fast. The older I get, the quieter I like my cars. You young people that are watching this, you're just hanging out by the dyno or the drag strip, cover your ears, protect your ears, because when you get old like me and you got hopefully grandkids coming here at some point in the near future, you want to be able to hear your grandkids talk to you. So anyway, the older I get, the quieter I like my cars. But at the same time, when I jump out of this, I jump into F5 or Exorcist or Mammoth 1000 T-Rex, electric cars will never take the place of what those cars are able to deliver in terms of just that overall visceral feel. There may be certain aspects about EVs that may be a little quicker, but again, I think that this has heightened my sense of appreciation for internal combustion. And I think that's why we're seeing, like, you want to buy a 05, 06 Ford GT, the floor used to be 300 grand, now it's 400 grand, it's quickly approaching 500 grand. And I think that as EVs become more prevalent, the great internal combustion cars will become more and more desirable and more valuable. So that's my story. I'm sure there's more to share about my impressions with these cars, and we'll do that in due time. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.